Check out my man Burke coming up behind me like a bullet train, pushing 14 watts per kilogram on this sprint. Absolute monster. All right, this is the Dirt Racing Series, and we are on the Petite Douleur course, or however that's pronounced. I feel like I am having deja vu, having just ridden this course days ago for Flamme Rouge Racing, and I gotta say that the way we got started, I felt like we were going a little bit stronger than I expected, and so I kind of had to give a little bit of a push just to stay on the back of this group. Popped up almost into 400 watts just to latch back on and stay with this group because while I had done this course before, I've never ridden this race, and so I wanted to make a good impression with my new teammates. I am riding with Team Dirty Watts Anarchy, and we are group of misfits, as it were. So strong guys, and I'm just trying to again make a good impression. Make sure that after having just got off of FRR, did one of these Zwift Games races earlier this week, which that video will come out after this one because I just have not had a chance to edit it. But that was tough. And so I got a chance to see how my legs are recovering from FRR on that race. And then the start of this one, feeling better, feeling good. Got a couple days of, pseudo rest. Just before this race, I actually jumped into one of the Zwift, um, whatever it's called, the Wheel of Fortune one. So I jumped into one of those, got myself a pair of headphones, and then use that as a warm up to jump into this. And so this ride or this race basically stays, we all stay together for the first few kilometers. So I'm going to fast forward to the climb since that is the first official point segment for this series. And so the way the points work is the climb itself. The first time up the Petite KOM is FAL, the first across the line. And so the group really pushed hard. You'll see that I did a good job of pacing and maintaining over 300 watts. I feel like almost the entirety of the climb. There's a couple flat parts where my wattage drops below the 300, but for the most part, I felt like I did really good on this climb. Not only staying with the group, but also maintaining my pacing. And then because it's FAL, like I said, the guys who are truly, here to race, really push the limits on this, and you kind of see the group starting to split apart little by little. Where the I wouldn't say the peer climbers, but the climbers are moving up to the front, and now the people who are the non-climbers are starting to drift back. And so as I start to fall back a little bit, you'll see my other teammate there just behind me to the right, and he pushes past me to manage to get up to that front group. I thought I could hold, in the 300s here, and like I said, I feel like I was doing really good maintaining my pace, especially up the steeper parts. And so as we get to, this corner just before the top, I figured I could, give it one good push to get up to that front group. But as you see, I'm already kind of in 50th in the mid pack and starting to slow down little by little. These corners are getting harder and harder to push through and maintain my wattage all the way up to the top. And so as we get over the top of the line here, I'm still in 50 something place. And so as I get over the line, now it's kind of the mission is to latch onto this group that's in front of me and do the best I can, not only on the downhill, but ultimately on the hills that are coming up after all of this. So I'm going to fast forward to where the sprint actually gets going. And so as you can see, we did all eventually come together, and this group right now is about 12 riders or so. And I made sure to turn on sauce just before we got to the sprint, because I didn't realize it after we got started that I didn't have sauce turned on. And when I did realize it, I didn't want to take the time at the moment to turn it on. So I just, while I could, I remoted onto my laptop with my phone and turned it on. So that way I could have it available for the sprint, because knowing where the start of the sprint is has become very crucial in my ability to sprint. And so as we start getting closer, I'm doing my best to stay in the middle of this group, kind of, middle towards the back. But what ends up happening is, right now we're holding 200 watts, kind of little by little started to slow down. As you can see, we dropped below 100 watts. And that's me trying to not like push hard and push to the front. 'Cause if not, they would have left me on the front, and I would have been doing 250 watts the whole time. Um, which that's those are the tactics that you play when it comes to racing. And so it did seem like everybody was slowing down to get to get the sprint right. And like I mentioned before, the first climb itself was FAL. The sprint, so this sprint and then the climb after this up to Petite KOM are both FTS. And so you see me there. I'm on Discord talking with my teammates, but laughing about the fact that we are just crawling right now before this sprint, which I thought was hilarious, because I feel like it's everyone. Like, I think if we were live with each other, we would be looking over at each other like, is anybody going to make a move? Is anybody going to do anything? Or are we just going to kind of come to a crawl? And so as as sauce changes into this 1 kilometer view, I can see where my teammates are at kind of up front, because they're in that group ahead of me on the bubbles down at the bottom of the screen, getting into the sprint itself and finished. And so they were talking through that, which gave me a good opportunity to kind of listen to what they were doing at the moment, and get myself ready for what was about to happen in our group, which you saw a little bit of in the beginning. I didn't see it. I didn't notice it at the time. When I saw that Bert came up behind me, I was like, man, that's pretty good. I didn't realize he did 14 watts, almost the entirety of the sprint itself, to to get that time, which he crushed it when it came to the time. He crossed the line in over 11 seconds. And so as we start approaching, I shift into my 53:11. And I got to say, this time around, I definitely messed up the initial start of the sprint. I got into my 53:11 on the start of that hill, which put me at 40 something 40 something RPM. And so as I was climbing that hill, I was having to push a little bit harder than I wanted to, and ended up starting my sprint a little bit earlier, because it pushed me off the front. So I figured I might as well just keep going. And so you see, I'm just pushing as hard as I can, and then ultimately start slowing down just slightly before the end. I figured, whatever time I had, I knew I did good. I used my feather to the advantage on that sprint. And when I saw that I crossed the line in 12:65, I was very excited about that. And then again, I didn't see that, Burke crossed, just behind me, and ultimately ended up taking the segment with for FTS. He crossed the line over just over 11 seconds. And so, like I said, I felt good about my time. Came in 7th place in the FTS points for this sprint, for this race. And so I don't know, I don't know what overall the points are going to look like. I got to double check that. But so far for my region for this race, I got at least 7, in 7th place on that FTS. And see, I had to jump my bike, because my bike slid a good probably foot off to one side. That's the drawback of being on flat concrete. I had a mat underneath my bike, but I ended up leaving it over at my brother-in-law's house this weekend. So once I get that back, I'll put it in place. That did help me before stay stabilized on these sprints. And so as we approach the climb here, I'm just going to fast forward to the top of the climb, because, at this point, my legs are done. You know, it's no longer necessary for me to try and push hard up for the FTS for this climb. I'm not a climber. I'm not going to compete in the segment. I did my best climb. I did my best climb a few minutes ago, seemingly. and I knew I wasn't going to do any better than that. And so I, at this point, was just going to try and get to the top as best as possible. So, like I said, I'll go ahead and fast forward to the finish there. And so as I'm approaching these last couple turns, I'm doing my best to push hard. I've got, a Sisu rider that was kind of on my tail this whole time. And you see, I got two guys right now on my tail, one from Team Nitro Rhino, and then the Sisu rider right behind me. And as I've mentioned before, these Sisu guys are strong guys. Like anytime I've raced with them, they're always passing me in some capacity. And so I was doing my best to stay ahead of him. As I start approaching this turn, I see the Rhino rider come up using his feather, and I was like, okay, great. He's got the advantage because I already used my feather by this point. And I start to see the Sisu guy, and I see that he's used his feather, and at that point, I kind of got frustrated and knew that, there was no way I was going to, catch him. If I'm doing 330 watts and he's passing me like I'm standing still, I knew I wasn't going to catch him. And I just kind of, soft pedaled ish to the end, doing my best to kind of get across the line, make sure I didn't lose too much time on that last couple, 10, 20 meters, whatever it was. But, I wanted to make sure I got across the line. And I gotta say, I thought I would have gotten a better 5 minute PR considering the first climb I did pretty good, staying above, staying in the 300s, 350s. But 3.7 on the, for 5 minutes, not bad. 3.2 or 3.1 for 20 minutes. Again, it's kind of, higher end of my typical performance. And, finishing just about 4 minutes or a little over 4 minutes behind um, the first place rider, I guess 3 minutes, 50 seconds behind the first place rider. I was pretty happy with that. And so that is, dirt racing. It's, once a week, Wednesdays. And while I feel like, it's going to be a lot harder competition, kind of like the Zwift Racing League is, where we got guys, which I got to say, I didn't expect to see so many other teams participate in this series. I would have thought this would have primarily been, dirt teams that were racing it, and then maybe a couple other stragglers. But to see so many different riders from so many different teams, that is pretty awesome. And that just goes to show you the level of competition here. It is not going to be easy, not going to be, no one's going to let anybody off the hook when it comes to making this easy. And so, like I said, that's dirt racing at its at its finest, so to speak. Um, and by its finest, I mean other people doing the good work while I'm just doing my best to survive. But after coming off of FRR, I gotta say I feel a lot better than I thought I would. But it is going to be back to team time trials tomorrow, and then more Zwift games on Monday. So I will catch you guys on the next race.